Set course for Star Trek Picard. Engage. Make it so. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and this is my spoiler-free review for Star Trek Picard, Episode 1, Remembrance. I'm excited to dive into this and talk about it. I was excited to watch this episode. As you can tell, I really enjoyed it, and I'm giving the episode a flat-out A. I'm excited to see what the rest of this season has to show us and where they're going to take these characters, where they're going to unravel this mystery. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do, which tells you right off the bat, this first episode did its job. So my history with Star Trek, I wouldn't say I'm a Trekkie, but I am a fan. I really do enjoy Star Trek. I haven't seen the original series with James T. Kirk, but I've seen all of the movies, all of the original movies that have James T. Kirk as captain, going all the way up through Next Generation and now the alternate timeline with Chris Pine. So I've seen all of the Star Trek movies. I used to watch Next Generation as a kid with my mom when it was on TV, and then when they dropped it all on Netflix, I was like, nostalgia, yeah, and I just binged that whole show, and I loved it. There were some episodes here and there that were kind of boring and I didn't care about. But as a whole, I love every single character on that show. I thought that show overall was just so incredibly interesting. And Jean-Luc Picard became my captain. And now I'm about halfway through Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So I don't have all this tons of Star Trek history and knowledge in my head, but I do enjoy Star Trek. I like it, and the fact that Jean-Luc Picard is my captain and Next Generation is so far my favorite iteration of the show. When I heard that they were going to do this show Picard and that Patrick Stewart was back, I was on board instantly. I just absolutely could not wait to watch this, and when I saw the first episode today, man, I had the biggest smile on my face the entire time. I was not disappointed by this episode. One of the first things that I absolutely loved is how it drew me into the world. I love futuristic sci-fi things, and what was really cool is literally this episode is very down to earth. You're looking at Picard living on his vineyard and kind of just in a little bit of day-to-day life. He's sad. You could tell he's sad. He's just kind of waiting to die. He's got his dog, who he calls Number One. That'll be the biggest spoiler I give. But I loved that. I love the fact that he had this dog and he called it Number One. That was so... Anyway, but it was cool just to see the world, to see the technology, to see Captain Picard go up to a replicator in his kitchen and say, tea, Earl Grey, like old times. But then to see the technology's updated. These little laser beams come on down and just create the cup and create the tea. And it was just so cool. I always thought the replicators was a fascinating thing, but it was cool to see that updated a little bit in this show. So what you're seeing is you're seeing the world. You're seeing the technology. I mean, how cool is it that Picard lives in a world where he's in France. He lives on his vineyard. Well, I need to hop over to San Francisco and check out something in the Starfleet archive. So, boom, there he is in San Francisco. I mean, to live in that world, it would be a paradise for those who want to travel and see everything. That was just... It was cool just to get involved in that world and get to know that world, especially since it's been since Star Trek Nemesis. That was the last time we saw Jean-Luc Picard as captain. That was the last time we were involved in that world. And then the next cinematic thing, was the alternate timeline movies. And so it's been a while since we've dived into this Next Generation world. So it was just cool to see that day-to-day life and to see that updated. And so I really enjoyed that aspect. The next thing I enjoyed was the pacing. The pacing kept this episode moving, and it was intriguing. So it had the right amount of nostalgia, because you could see Commander Data in the trailer, and I don't want to really reveal all that means, but it was really cool the way he was involved in this series premiere. And the way it did use the right amount of nostalgia for those of us that like the Next Generation and really enjoyed it and like that relationship between Picard and Data, the way it just pulled on that nostalgia but then took it somewhere new and added these layers of mystery to it. So it was really cool what they did. Cool how they acknowledged Data's sacrifice in Star Trek Nemesis. One of the intriguing things about the story was the acknowledgement of the events in the Star Trek movie from 2009. Ambassador Spock, and he's trying to create that black hole to save Romulus from the supernova that destroys it and then gets sucked into the black hole himself. Romulus is destroyed. Alternate timeline is created. Now, they don't talk about the alternate timeline because they don't know about that. What they do know is Romulus was destroyed in that supernova. They acknowledge that as canon. They acknowledge those events. What was really cool was how they tied Captain Picard to those events. What a humanitarian that he is, that he wants to save the Romulans. Here they are, one of the oldest enemies of the Federation, and he's not looking at that. He's going, those are lives, and lives are worth saving. But it's interesting the way they pull Picard into that. There's certain consequences of stuff that happened that they didn't go deeply into because you know it's going to unfold. It's part of this mystery that's going to unfold as the season goes forward. So they did a good job pulling from that 2009 movie, making it canon, and showing you how that affected Picard. It was incredibly interesting, and it promises to take that event and that there were other events that happened right there in that time frame that really were quite scarring for Picard, and we're going to get deeper into that. So it's really cool how it made these promises. It took this history, it made it interesting, and it makes these promises of where we're going to go with things, and I am very much just hooked. It hooked me. So I'm giving the episode an A. It was fast-paced. It's just exciting. It's exciting to see this timeline go forward. So we definitely have multiple timelines. The Chris Pine, Captain Kirk timeline, and this timeline. And I'm really excited to see like how the events of that 2009 Star Trek movie truly impacted Picard. How they truly impacted Starfleet and what they're going to do with that. And the link with that girl that they introduced, like the way they linked her to Picard, it was so smart. And it's a really cool link into the Next Generation. They took Next Generation stuff and linked her right in there, and it adds to the mystery of who is she. So it's really cool, and I cannot wait to dive into this more. If you've seen the episode, what did you think? Are you excited for the rest of the season? Let's talk about that in the comments. While you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit the bell by the subscribe button so you're notified the next time I do a movie review, ranking video, theological analysis, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.